So I want to try and get the infeed table off, but in order to do that, I have to find a way and come up with a way to safely lift the table off without doing anything too strange. So I decided to try with the 2x4 method, meaning put the flat piece that I'm drilling through under the table, screw a bunch of screws into the vertical piece, put a chain in that, and a piece of plywood across, and see if it works. So initially it was running into problems where it was not stable enough to drill and screw. These are just reusing the screws we used to hold all the wood together when we brought the joiner home in the truck. And some of them are slightly stripped out, some of them work fine. But I did need to hold it together a little bit better to screw these things in. And so yeah, get all these parts in there. That should be good. And test to see if it's even going to work. I tried it before this and it seemed like it was going to. So the plan is to put it in like that, with the plywood across, and bolt it all together, and hopefully it'll hold together. That's the plan. Spoiler alert, I know if it worked or not, and you'll see soon. So then I realized, alright, I need to put the bolts in there, and so I need to drill holes for the bolts, and then I realized the bolts are going to be in the way. If I do that, the heads are going to conflict with the jointer. So I got a Foister bit out, and initially I tried to do a little template, but then I realized I have the holes in two different places. The template's not really going to work, so I sort of used it and sort of didn't. I've learned that you have to clean. It's best to clean up while you're doing it, otherwise it causes way more mess, and the mess actually gets in the way. So that's how I do my thing: is work for a bit, clean up, work for a bit, clean up. Otherwise, it just gets too messy, and too much mess can also get dangerous. So I try and avoid that. I got lots of screws in there and some bolts, and then realized, okay, the bolt is just long enough; it barely fits past there. With a little bit of persuasion with the mallet, it worked, and moving the stuff back and forth, that sort of worked. And then I realized, okay, I need some blocks, because otherwise that's going to pull too much on that wheel, and I really don't want to damage the 100-year-old wheel. That would kind of defeat the purpose. Otherwise, the plan worked okay. The chain on there, everything going, got those in, got that on, screwed it all in. Got ready to do the other chain. The other side was easier because the bolts, although I had to put the bolts in first, I didn't have problems. And since the last time I was trying to lift these things, I bought extra pieces. So I have some extra D-rings. I have, which the problem is that the pins for these hooks are just the size of the chain hole, but it went in. So that plus the D-ring, then get that up and test that out, and hey, it looks like it's going to work. And I tested clear till I was able to lift it up. So before I attempted to loosen things, I figured, all right, will it lift the end of the joiner? Yes. Okay, then we're good. And I put that cloth strap on just as an in-case thing. I didn't end up needing it. Luckily, everything stayed perfectly solid, which was awesome. And here I'm starting to take stuff off now that I have some tension on it. Not a lot, but just enough so that it's not going to slide off. Got those off. That worked. All these square bolts ended up being 1/2 inch, so that was good. Of course, that leaves a fairly short wrench to use, but that's all right. I also noticed that all of these pieces that I'm taking off on the sides are numbered. And for some reason, the infeed table has 1, 2, 3, and 5 numbers. I don't know why. I don't know if they had things off and on, and 4 is somewhere on the outfeed side. I'm not sure. But then I realized, hey, I need to write those down. So I wrote them down. Now I will know where they go on the way back, so that's good. Because there's nothing worse than you take stuff off and you think you're going to remember, and you don't. That's the worst thing. But yeah, and then I go, and have everything off and loose, and then start lifting it up, and it starts coming up, and it's off, and it's not falling. Yay. Well, after a lot of back and forth and playing around, the infeed's off. I wasn't sure this was going to work, but it seemed to. Jamming 2x4s under the sides and having that hold up underneath, putting a bunch of screws up through into here, bolts out through, chain up around. Now on this side I had to do extra wooden spacers so I didn't put much pressure on the wheel. I hope that's going to be alright. It's because otherwise I don't want to crank on the wheel and bend it or the shaft, because that would be bad. And then I put, in order to stabilize these, because they would want to tend to fly out, I put a bunch of screws with some plywood. And the plywood plus chains plus the new hooks that I got plus my D-rings, 111 kilograms just for the infeed table. So that's kind of cool. Now I just got to set it down without breaking it. So now it's time to let it down. I put the cardboard down, had to shuffle things around a bit, and including the main joiner body itself, to have space to set it down. Then I figured, alright, I'm going to put cardboard down and then a piece of plywood and just go really slow. Really slow is your friend when you're dropping something heavy and you don't want it to break. Around here I realized, okay, that's down. Is the wheel going to hit first or the other stuff? Nope, the other stuff's going to hit first. So I need to put the 2x6s underneath. And of course, similar to the jointer frame, there are two sides to the part sticking down, and it's not solid the whole way across. So here I realized, okay, I don't want to get it sitting on the strap and have to cause problems since that strap's not working and doing anything. So I moved that and got down a little more. Going. Okay, double check again, make sure that the wheel's gonna miss and the boards are lined up. That one's not bad. The other one needs bumped a little bit. Get that one better. Alright. Then we can let it down. So close, so close. I think it's down. And we just go a little bit further and it tilts, and that is a good thing. And we managed to get it off and down to the floor and no weight on the crane, more or less. And it was successful. Yay! It went down. I had to add those 2x6s in order that the sides, because there's the two sides under there, that way it did not sit on the wheel. But it's down. It's really heavy, but it's down. And this let me get in here and see. So I think when we got this whole section here was also full of chips, because there's a section here that lets the chips down through. So I think after I put that back on, that's just too bright. After I put that back on, we'll have to see how it goes. So this side has a little raised middle section. This side's just flat. And yeah, it's old and dirty, but hopefully it'll work okay. I think these are the bolts that hold the bearing in place for the head. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. I'll have to figure out, because since that's 111 kilograms, I will have to see how I can carefully move that. I may have to get Robert to help shift that around to flip it over so I can look and work on the underside. Or maybe I can get to the underside from this end. But yeah, there's no way that I can get
there's no way, because it's that heavy by myself, that I can get it from there up onto the bench to work on like I had originally thought. But that's the way it goes. I had to do some of the drill press pieces on the floor, so we'll just have to do this on the floor. But the infeed table's off, and I didn't break anything, so that's cool. And each one of these little things have numbers on. Now, granted, I don't know why it had a 1, a 5, a 2, and a 3 on the infeed table. That, to me, I would have thought it would have been 1, 2, 3, 4. But I don't know. That's not how they were numbered. But I did note which one was where, so when they go back on, I can try and put them back. But yeah, infeed is off, so that's a success.